Hi everyone, in today's tutorial I'll be showing you how we can use artificial intelligence to reimagine iconic paintings and turn them into realistic people. So I've used these methods to create these fictional magazine covers where I've basically taken some of these iconic figures from paintings and turned them into realistic people as if they existed in today's society. So I did it for the Mona Lisa, a girl with a pearl earring, the lady with the ermine, and even American Gothic. So without further ado, let's get started. So our first step is to find an image that we want to use. So I'll be using the image of a girl with a pearl earring. Now you can obviously find this image on Google. You can download it so that you can follow along with the tutorial. So the next step is to actually create a prompt for our image. So you can describe that manually by analyzing your image. You can say maybe a white female wearing a headscarf and a yellow jacket. But I think a better way to do this to get a more descriptive response is to use artificial intelligence. So you can use ChatGPT. And if you create a new chat, you've got this icon over here that allows you to upload images. I think they allow you to upload 2 or 3 images for free. And then once your image is uploaded, you just want to type in this following sentence, which is describe this image into a prompt that I can use to generate AI imagery, and click on send. And then it will come back with a response. This is the response that it gave me, which is quite descriptive for this image and is going to be an excellent starting point for generating our image in Fooocus. So for this demonstration, I'll be using Fooocus and Photoshop. Now this tutorial assumes that you guys already know how to set up Fooocus either locally or online. But once you've got Fooocus open, the first thing you want to do is enable input image and enable advanced. You want to make sure that you're on the settings tab over here, and your speed, you can leave that on 30 steps. And then if you go to styles, this is really important. So Fooocus has a bunch of awesome styles that you can use to transfer over different styles into your images. But the 4 styles I'm going to be using are Focus, V2, Sharp, Enhance, and the Analog Film. So I noticed that that gives me a very realistic end result for my generation. And just another thing to notice, under models, I am using the Juggernaut XL, but by default, as long as you've got Fooocus set up, this is what you should have access to as well. And then under settings, my image number, so this is the type of images it's going to be generating. I usually increase this to a little bit of a higher number so that while it's generating images, if there's something I don't like, you'll actually see that a skip button will be visible over here. So you can just click on skip and it will go to the next generation. So it just allows me to see more variations. And then the aspect ratio is actually quite important because the aspect ratio should actually match the aspect ratio of the image that you'll be using in Fooocus. So in this case, with the girl with the pearl earring, you can see that this image is actually quite vertical. But if I want to match the exact aspect ratio over here, so with an image like this, I'll use an aspect ratio of 832 by 1152. But if it's more of a square image, you'll obviously keep that on 1 by 1. But usually I want to match the exact aspect ratio. So in Photoshop, I'll create a document over here, which is 832 by 1152 as well. Click on create. And then I'll bring in the girl with the pearl earring, drag and drop it over here. And I'll just hold on shift and just scale this up just to match the exact dimensions. Just frame that and then save a copy to my desktop over here as PNG. And I'll just type this as girl and click on save. And OK. So now I've got an image at the perfect dimensions that I'll be using at the exact aspect ratio in Fooocus. Alright, so the next step is to go to image prompt, and we want to enable advanced so that we can see these additional sliders. Now you want to drag and drop the image that we saved from Photoshop in here. You want to drag it into this slot and into this slot as well. So now I'll be explaining these different features over here at the bottom and which ones I'll be using. So for the setup of this image, I'll be using either Pyrocani or CPDS on this image slot, and on this image slot I'll be using face swap. But now just to go back to the first one, I mentioned Pyrocani and CPDS. So these two features basically copy over the pose of your image. One of them, the Pyrocani, respects the edges of an image, while the CPDS respects the depth. Now I've noticed you can get varied results using either one of these. Sometimes CPDS works really well for complex poses, but you have to experiment depending on your input image. So in the case with the girl with the pearl earring, I'll see which one works best, either CPDS or Pyrocani. And then on the right we have face swap, which does exactly what it says. It's going to basically analyze the face of the image and swap it onto your generated image. So just to explain these sliders over here, on a face swap, a value that I notice works really well is to put your stop at on 1 and your weight on 1. And this should give you a pretty good result for respecting the face and transferring it over. But just to explain how the sliders work, so the higher this number is, the more it's going to be transferring over the likeness of the face onto your image. So by decreasing this value, it will actually respect more of the prompt. So if I put it on like a value of 0.5, for 50% of the image that gets generated, it's going to respect the face that it sees in the image, and then for the other 50%, it's going to transfer over what it sees in the prompt. You also want to try and avoid putting the weight value on something that's very high, but again, you have to experiment. If I put this on like a value of 1.5, of course it's going to respect more of the face and transfer more of the likeness over to the image, but it might bring in some other artifacts that are visible on the original image itself. In this case, there's some, paint cracks and other imperfections that are visible there, and it might transfer that over. So just by leaving that on 1 seems to work quite well. So I know I mentioned that you shouldn't put the value on something that's too high like 1.5, but you can break the rules depending on the image and depending on the artifact in. In this case, to show you a visual representation, for this tutorial, our final image is actually going to look like this, which is the weight value on 1 using face swap. So it does look similar to the original image, but also looks quite different. And then this one is on a value of 1.5, which in my opinion definitely looks a lot closer to the original image of a girl with a pearl earring, especially if I put them side to side. You can just see a visual representation. And then over here. So it depends on the aesthetic that you're going for. If you want it to look as close as possible to the original image of a girl with a pearl earring, then you can put the weight value on 1.5. Or if you want to do something that's similar but adds maybe a little bit of variety or difference to the image, then you can just leave the weight on 1. So now our next step is actually to put a prompt in here, right? So we obviously generated a prompt with ChatGPT. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this and paste it over here. And we are nearly good to go to start generating our image. I obviously want to just explain something here on the left hand side with CPDS. So I did explain the weight value and that you should think of this as a percentage. So by putting this on 1, I'm basically telling the AI that it needs to respect this pose for almost 100% of the image's generation. So the higher this value is, the more it's going to respect the pose. And I also want to put my stop at on a higher value, right? Because you can see it was on 0.5, which I'm basically telling the AI on 0.5. So for 50% of the generation, it will respect the pose. And then for the other 50%, it's going to pay attention to the prompt. So I want the pose to be as close as possible to this image as possible. So a value of 0.9 and 1 on the weight. On, I guess with this case, because there's nothing else in the background, Pyrocani would work very well because it would be respecting the edges a lot more. If there was more stuff happening in the background with a more complex pose, I think CPDS would work better. So for this case, Pyrocani on 0.9 and weight on 1 with the prompt, and then I'm going to click on generate and watch the magic unfold. So I just wanted to demonstrate some of the generations that are being created, which again is really awesome. So you can see we've got the original pose in there. It's also taking the likeness from this image and transferring it over. But because we have these styles enabled, we get in a very realistic end result over here. And remember, I put this on 8 images. So I'm generating, well, I can generate endless variations of these until I find one that I really like. And I do like the addition of some additional patterns being introduced in here as well. I think that's a nice little touch. But yeah, immediately straight out of the gate, we've got a realistic image of a girl with a pearl earring. So something else to mention, this prompt is extremely important because sometimes if you don't specify certain elements that the character's wearing in the original image, it might not generate that. You can see in the prompt, it did specify that she is wearing a prominent pearl earring. And that's why we are getting a pearl earring in the generated image as well. So just keep that in mind. The prompt is very, very important for your final output. And that's why I used AI just to generate something descriptive, but sometimes you do have to come back in here and adjust it. So the prompt, of course, can change certain elements of the image. Over here, instead of wearing maybe a blue headscarf, just say wearing a headscarf and a leather jacket. Right, it'll give me a different item of clothing while still respecting the pose and her likeness. So there we go. Now she's wearing a leather jacket. Or you can change it entirely while still respecting the pose. So if I got rid, let's just say I got rid of the likeness right now, and I said a black female wearing a black leather headscarf and a black leather jacket. Now I'll get a completely different image, but an image that still respects the original pose from a girl with a pearl earring. So you can generate endless variations of different images. So now you see we completely changed the race. It's not paying attention to, you know, any likeness by using a face swap, but it's still respecting the pose. So I did just want to show you how to generate variations of the image while still referencing the pose. But I am going to revert back to the original image of the girl with the pearl earring. So I will find my image over here and just drag and drop it and make sure I'm back on face swap, and I'll bring back the original prompt from ChatGPT. Okay, so we're back to our image of the girl with the pearl earring, but let's say during our generations we actually like elements in more than one image. I want to show you how to combine those elements together to create one image. So let's say I like this image because it respects the original colors, but then in this one over here, maybe I actually like these patterns on the jacket, or I want to change this item of clothing entirely. As long as the lighting matches in the image, you should be able to do this with relative ease. So you want to find images that you like. In this case, I like this one, so I'm going to save it by clicking on this icon, save it to the desktop, and I like this. Oh, let me see what else we got. Oh yeah, okay. So I like this one, and I'm going to save that to the desktop. So now I want to go ahead and go to Photoshop. Actually, let's bring in this image because this is going to be my main image that I really like. And I'll bring in this image as well. Drag and drop that on top of this one, press enter. And then I'm going to click on layer mask. Oops, sorry, I want to double click over here on background and put this one on top, and then click on layer mask. And with black and on a soft round brush, as long as I start painting on top of this image, it'll reveal what's underneath. So now I can combine these two images together. So this would be the Photobashing element of this demonstration. I can bring some of this back into the image. Now, of course, the background over here was different. So the way I blend this is why I use a soft round brush, just to make that transition less prominent. And then maybe I actually liked those pearls that were on the headscarf. But yeah, so this is how you can combine two images together, two different elements. And now this would be the image that I would continue with in Fooocus. So I'd go ahead and save this out, and I'll save this as girl new, save, and I'll bring this new image where I've combined two different elements together into Fooocus. So you could do the same. Maybe there was an earring in another image that you liked more than this image. Just bring it into Fooocus, bring it into Photoshop, layer mask that, and just literally paint to reveal it underneath and do some photobashing. Okay, so let's say I'm happy with this image, but I just want to improve, you know, some additional details on here. I want to make these eyes look a bit better. And I'll show you also how you can use inpainting to change elements of the clothing. So you want to go to this inpaint or outpaint and just drag and drop your image in here. And now we're ready to start using this section of Fooocus. So immediately, if I want to improve the quality of her eyes, I just need to go to method and change this to improve detail. Now you got to be careful with this, because if I choose to paint over her entire face, I'm basically going to lose her lightness. So I just want to adjust the eyes. So we've got these buttons over here. This one allows me to change the size of the brush that I'm going to be painting with. This, you'll see if I start painting on here, it starts painting essentially a mask. If I click on that, it gets rid of the entire mask, or you can undo it as well. But now I just want to paint a mask over her eyes, just this section over here, because I only want to adjust the eyes. Now you can type in over here like beautiful eyes. I'll say beautiful brown female eyes, and then click on generate, and it will give me a much higher quality resolution of those eyes. So immediately you can see that that's being generated over here. But again, just be mindful of it, because sometimes it can alter the way your character looks. So in this case, I've got some much better looking eyes, and I'll sometimes bring that back into Photoshop, which I'll show you quickly. Right, like let's say I like these eyes. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. Just click on stop. So I'll bring the girl new image into Photoshop, which is the one we worked on previously. You can see the eyes over here. And I'll bring this new image into Photoshop, layer it on top, and then just create another layer mask. And in this case, if I feel like it's adjusting the way she looks way too much, I'll paint on top of here just to reveal the other layer underneath, but maybe try and keep some of the high quality that was generated with these new eyes. Alright, so before, after, before, after. And I can see maybe certain elements of her eyes and the shape is changing. That's why you adjust it in here. But I did want better quality looking eyes. So that's one way to fix that. Oh, maybe paint some of that back there. That's one way to fix that using Fooocus. So now this would be the new version and I would save this out. I'm just going to save it as girl new 2 and then continue working from there. So now I'll bring girl new 2 into my inpaint and outpaint, get rid of this mask, and now here's an improved version with better eyes that still respects the original face. So at this point, let's say I'm done, I'm happy with this, I've changed certain elements of the image by combining them in Photoshop. I even fixed some of the eyes. But now what I would do over here, I would go to upscale and variation, and I would drag and drop my image in here, and I would upscale this 2 times because that's going to give me much better quality. Now it is going to lose the likeness on the face, but again I'll be going back into Photoshop and choosing which elements of the upscale I want to keep. But I'll always upscale this and just click on generate and get another version. Alright, so here's an upscale version, so I'm going to go ahead and save this. Right, and then I'll bring in our image we worked on earlier where we adjusted the eyes, and then bring in that upscaled version and place it on top, press enter, create a layer mask, and now I'm going to strategically erase certain elements. Like I can see the likeness of a face has been lost, so I'm going to make sure I bring back some of those eyes, make sure this is on black, bring back some of the eyes, but there's still elements from the upscale version that I definitely like, maybe some of the smoother skin. So it's finding a balance between blending these elements together, both the high quality and the original. At least this is what I do. Until I find a good balance. You can see the eyes over there, even in the upscale version. Looks better. But yeah, until I find a good blend and everything else looks good, and once I'm happy with that, this could be my final version of the girl with the pearl earring. Alright, so there we go. We've gone from this to this, a more realistic version of a girl with a pearl earring. So our image is done, and this is optional, but I still highly recommend it. So the way I take my images to a whole new level is to use a service called Magnific AI. So I want to show you the before. So this is the image we created with Fooocus. But with Magnific, here's the new version. So I'm still retaining the original image, but look at the additional detail that's been added on here, especially with the eyes, the skin detail, even with the eyebrows. So it's not only is it increasing the resolution of the image, but it's introducing some new detail and information on the image as well. But what's really important are these sliders, because your image can look completely different if you don't pay attention to these sliders. So you can see what I've got selected over here. I basically just uploaded my image, and by bringing the creativity all the way down to -5 and the resemblance all the way to 8, it makes sure that it doesn't move away from the original image's likeness, but instead enhances it and increases the detail while adding a couple of new information and detail onto the image. But yeah, Magnific is amazing. It is a paid service. It is a little bit pricey as well. But if you really wanted to take your images to a new level of quality, then this service is fantastic. And yeah, I wanted to show you my sliders over here because this is important. Yeah, so before and after. So this would be my final image now of a girl with a pearl earring at a much higher resolution. So now I want to give you a whole bunch of additional tips and even how to troubleshoot certain elements like hands and all of that. when you're generating these images. But let's have some fun. So let's go back to focus, right? Still keep everything the same, like how you had it with all of these styles set up. But now I'm going to adjust the prompt over here. I'm going to say a girl at the beach wearing a blue headscarf and yellow swimsuit, eating ice cream, wearing a pearl earring. All right, it's always, like I said, important to specify, you know, certain jewelry or elements that she is wearing for the final generated image. But in this case, instead of respecting the pose, let's go ahead and put her in a completely different destination. So I'm going to bring this value all the way down to 0.2, and you'll see what it ends up doing. So now we're going to take the girl with the pearl earring on vacation. All right, so as you can see, by altering that value, the girl with the pearl earring is now on the beach and she's eating ice cream. In some cases, her pearl earring is turned into ice cream, or she's maybe got 3 fingers in this case. But I'll show you how to fix stuff like that. But like this image, in my opinion, is really cool because the hands are correct. She's wearing a pearl earring, she's got a headscarf on, she's at the beach. And that's just a really cool way to take this image and completely reimagine it and put it in a completely different destination as well. Okay, so hands, right? Let's talk hands because AI really struggles with hands, and I'm going to give you some workarounds on how to fix this. Number one, whenever you're generating an image that has any hands visible, at least make sure that the generated image has plausible looking hands. Like there should at least be 5 fingers or 4 fingers in this case. But if you can try and get an image that has 5 fingers, then you're already good to go because it's going to make, you know, the process of making these hands look better much easier. In this case, I've got 5 fingers, right? But I still can make these hands look better. And by doing that, if I go to inpaint and outpaint, if I drag and drop this image over here, right, and then I change this to improve detail, and I just start painting on the hands, right? Like I said, the most important thing, just try and get your initial generation to have hands that look plausible and already look good. And at least they should have 5 fingers. If you can get 5 fingers, then you're good to go. Now over here, you want to put detailed hand, but I'm going to specify that it is a female hand. And I'm going to say with blue nails as well. So like I said, this is how you can make the hands look even better. And then just click on generate and I'll show you the end result. Okay, so there we go. This is what I said about making the hands look better. I'll click on this. Now, let me just see the before and after. That over there, I don't know if that's supposed to be a finger or if that's supposed to be some of the ice cream, but you can rectify that in Photoshop with no problem. But here's the hands before, right? And here's the hands after. So the detail of the hands looks much better, and we actually have nails that are painted blue. Something like this in Photoshop is so easy to fix. A little error like that, you can just use clone stamp and clone stamp it away. But that's not really related to the hand right now. I wanted to show you how to make the hand look better directly in focus if you already have 5 fingers. This is the feature that you would use. And notice that I had to type in a prompt over here, but I did not have to adjust the prompt up here. Now the other method, which is a lot more difficult and more challenging to do, like if you've got a generation, in this case, she only has 4 fingers, right? If I bring this into Photoshop, right, and I'm going to double click over here and just duplicate this, I'm going to do a little bit of Frankensteining. So I'm going to grab this finger using the lasso tool. I'm going to just grab one of these fingers and I'm going to move this over here. Right, now also just try and pay attention to your own hand because obviously certain fingers are longer than others. I'm going to just try and position it somewhere here so that it looks more natural. Alright, now obviously right now that does not look good, right? I still have to save this out and fix it with focus. So I'm going to save out this image to the desktop, and then I'm going to bring that same image back into focus now with that Frankenstein finger, and I'm going to paint over the hand like this, and hopefully AI will work its magic. So now I said detail female hand with blue nails and click on generate. So the AI is going to create obviously a seamless blend between those fingers, but give me a completely new version. So hopefully we get something good. But this is why I said from the start, you should try and at least have 5 fingers. So this already looks bad. I'm going to click on skip and maybe I find something that looks a lot better. But you can see now it's giving you a new version where the fingers obviously look coherent and like it's part of this actual hand. So this is how I would add in an additional finger. But again, it's not going to look amazing because from the get-go the hand already had 3 fingers, so it just creates unnecessary issues for you. So like I said, if you can get a generation with 5 fingers, but this is a way to kind of rectify it or work around it. But again, it still doesn't look that natural. But yeah, that is one way to create a blend. You have to do a little bit of Frankensteining. You can also try and drag that image. So if you go to upscale and variation, drag that same image over here and then just click on vary. And vary is, well, it's going to give you variations of this image. So it might give you completely different positions of the hands, but at least now it knows that it's supposed to, or in most cases, trying to generate new versions with 5 fingers. Okay, so you can see the problems you run into when your initial generation does not have 5 fingers in it. It gives you a lot more work and it can be really challenging and tricky to get these hands correct. But I did want to show you at least some type of workaround to rectify that by Frankensteining it. And then what you would do is you'd save this image, the variation image. So you take this one and the Frankenstein variation version. Just make sure they line up. Put a layer mask on this one, and like I was showing you earlier in the tutorial, just paint those new hands into this image. And then you can maybe take that back into focus and generate another better version of the hands on top of this image. But let's see before and after. Well, 3 fingers and now, well, 5. All right. So that's one way to fix hands. So I just want to talk more about the inpainting and outpainting. So if I have an image like this and maybe I want to change elements of it, I can obviously just paint a mask, like let's say with her scarf. I'm just going to paint a mask over here. Right, that encompasses the scarf. Then I'll go to modify content, and over here I'll type in a black bandana with patterns. But I need to make sure whenever I'm using modify content that this prompt is also in the prompt over here to get a end result, and then I'll click on generate. So this is one way to change the item of clothing on your image as well, if you want to just see variations of it. So you can see it starts generating these variations. Now she's wearing a black bandana with patterns on it. Alright, that one's pretty cool. So yeah, just another way to see some other clothing items on your image. So if you wanted to see more of the image, then of course you have this amazing feature called Outpainting. Now you can choose to extend the image either to the left, right, top or bottom, or in all directions. And I'll show you what that looks like. Now I'm actually not going to put a prompt in here at all. I'm just going to let it generate that and let the AI guess what the rest of the image should look like, and then click on generate. So this is a cool way just to extend the dimensions of your image. Alright, so there is the example, and the AI does a really good job guessing what should be included in the rest of the image. And yeah, there's our girl with a pearl earring eating ice cream on the beach. Alright, so another bonus tip. Let's turn our final image into a magazine cover. Basically what I showed you at the beginning of this tutorial. So grab your image, open up Photoshop, and drag and drop it in here. So this is going to be the dimensions for our magazine cover. Now whenever I'm creating these magazine covers, I either have the main logo, in this case Vogue. The text will either be behind the character or on top of them. So I like to automatically isolate this character, meaning that I like to remove the background. So there's 2 ways to do this. If you're using Photoshop, you should automatically have a feature that allows you to select the subject. So if you click on that, it'll automatically create the selection on your subject, and then you just have to create a layer mask and your background is removed, and then you can create a shape over here, and just drag and drop it behind the character, and I can make this whatever color I want it to be. But if you're not using Photoshop, there is another way to easily remove backgrounds. All you have to do is go to Adobe Express. So this is the URL, and we're looking for the remove background. So it's remove background feature. You just log in. This is completely for free, and all I have to do is drag and drop our image of a girl with a pearl earring in here. The AI is automatically going to remove the background for us, and you can save this out completely for free at the original resolution, right? You don't have to pay for any premium plans. So Adobe Express is amazing, and you'll see it's going to automatically remove the background for us. There we go, and then you can just click on download, and you'll go ahead and you can save this as a PNG. So now here's the PNG file. So let's say in this case, right, I'll just get rid of this. In this case, I still have the original image over here. Now I can grab my PNG, drag and drop this onto this document, and just press enter. So now I've got an isolated layer, which means that if I create a layer over here, I can start painting behind our character or whatever it is that's in the image, right? So that's how you do that. And then I'll go to a website over here called stickpng.com if I'm looking for logos of various companies. So here's the Vogue logo. I can go ahead and download this, and I'll bring that into Photoshop. So I've got my logo. Let's drag and drop that in here, and I'm just going to scale this up, and there we go. So now I've got text that is behind the character. So I can either put it behind or in front of our image. Then I would maybe just select this and maybe change the color. Let's see, maybe white. Now of course I know our character's on top of the text, but I've seen this on a lot of Vogue covers where the main subject actually obstructs the title of the magazine. If you don't like that, then obviously you can just put it on top of your image, but sometimes I like to have it behind there. And then what I tend to do with the magazines, I'll create a new layer, put this all the way on black, and maybe just decrease the opacity and create like this, almost like a gradient at the bottom. So I'm using a soft round brush and just create a gradient over here. And the reason why I'm doing that is because whenever I type any text at the bottom, it's going to be a lot more visible. So I'm going to do exactly that, and a font that I really enjoy using is called Gotham Black. So we can type something over here like girl with a pearl earring. Alright, and then maybe that would be like one of the taglines over here at the bottom. And then you can maybe duplicate this and create a smaller tagline. Beauty reimagined. And then maybe scale that down. And there we go, put that. You can see Photoshop automatically has these guides where it snaps to the center. And a little tagline at the bottom. And if you want to, you can create some other magazine headlines over here. But that would basically be it. Really quick and easy way. Then maybe I want to put the date for this magazine. So I tend to put that by the actual logo. So today is June. We're in the month of June. So June 2024. And just scale that down. And place that over here. And there we go. That's how I essentially create those magazine covers with some text on it. It really is that easy to do. And I just showed you a really easy way to remove backgrounds as well. So that's going to be the end of this video. Now you guys know how to turn iconic paintings or even sketches into realistic people. Once you understand the whole process, you can see how much fun this is. And it's another reason why I've created so many of these magazine covers, because I enjoy seeing reinterpretations of them. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for some more videos and tutorials, and goodbye.